Coming in at number 10 spot, we have Cave of Death. I mean, the name says it all, but if you happen to be in Scotland and want to try something daring, then try out the Cave of Death. Archaeologists discovered this not too long ago and found that this was an ancient location used for human sacrifice, execution, and body disposal. Radiocarbon dating found mass of dismembered body parts, including children's head left on poles that are in front of the cave's entrance, which were left there more than 3,200 years ago. It's said that they did this because they treated the place as a shrine where they would leave those who passed away, waiting for them to decompose, then collecting their bones. Not the most ideal cave to visit on this list. At a number 9 spot, we have the Bell Witch Cave. This one literally has the word witch in it, so you know there's probably nothing good about it. According to the legend of the Bell Witch in 1804, a farmer named John Bell moved his kids and his wife to a farm along the Red River in northern Robertson County. The property also included a cave, which is known now as the Bell Witch Cave. It is believed to be haunted by the spirit of a witch named Kate Batts, who felt that she was cheated by Bells in the land purchase and ever since carried a strong dislike for Bell. Then when Bell passed away under suspicious circumstances, people believed it to be the witch who was supposedly hiding in that very cave. Now the area is a huge tourist attraction with kayak and canoe rentals at the lake nearby, and with a very famous Halloween event all around the farm, including a tour in the cave. So who knows, you might snap a photo of the Bell Witch if you go in that cave. At our number 8 spot, we have the Mammoth Cave. Horror author H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Beast in the Cave, was inspired by this famously creepy Kentucky cave system that could be the largest haunted cave in America. Evidence seen from the cave suggests that prehistoric humans used to mine in the cave over 4,000 years ago, but eventually the cave would be used as a cemetery, with many of them leaving their deceased ones there. Fast forward 2,000 years and they would eventually leave the cave in a rush, leaving many of their belongings, which could be found to this day. Whatever caused them to leave was unknown, but many suspected that it was the spirits of the ones who were left to rot there. After the War of 1812, the caves were sold off to mine saltpeter and enslaved people who were sent to work and would pass away in the caves. Nowadays, apparitions of deceased enslaved people and prehistoric humans are often reported, along with ghostly coughs and eerie feelings of being watched in some sections of the caves. Sounds like a good one. Coming in at number 7 spot, we have Robbers Cave. The entrance to Robbers Cave is located southwest of the center of the city of Lincoln, Nebraska. The cave system is a naturally made cave, which is mostly limestone that has been chipped away and tunneled out by water over thousands of years. The earliest documented use of the cave was the Pawnee Indians, who named the cave Pahuk Bluff, and was used for spiritual practices such as healing and animal powers. Nowadays, the locals claim to hear the sounds of beating drums and chanting as if the rituals are still being performed by the ghosts of the natives. When you're at the entrance of the cave, it's said that you can hear both the screams and the moans echoing throughout the whole cave system. At a number 6 spot, we have the Cave of Sybil. This cave was named after priestess Cumae Sybil, who was residing over the Apollonian oracle at Cumae, which was a Greek colony located near Naples, Italy. Her cave, located near a temple of Apollo, was believed to be the entrance to the underworld, or even worse, a portal to hell. It's said that even birds won't be seen flying over the cave. According to legend, the oracle of the ancient priestess guards this gateway and guides travelers on their descent to Hades. One of the ancient Rome's prophet, Virgil, wrote that the cave had 100 entrances that led deep beneath the earth and as far as the underworld itself. His poem goes, quote, "The gates of hell are open night and day, smooth the descent and easy is the way." Right in the hump of our list, we have Davalus Cave. Located on Mount Penteli, the cave has been enjoying a notorious reputation since the 1800s, when reports of paranormal activity first began. Journey a few hours north of central Athens and you might see why. Stories tell of electronics that stop working, of water which flows the wrong way, and even mysterious disappearances of explorers who enter the cave never to emerge again. Details such as a small handprint near the entrance further shroud the location in mystery. It's said that this cave was used by various religious groups or cult practitioners, and whispers of sacrifices and demonic rituals are said to have happened in these very caves. The cave has many different tunnels within, which are all said to lead to an underground water pool, which are all linked to the god Pan and his nymphs. All the way at our number 4 spot, we have Koniana Cave. Koniana Cave is located at the base of a cliff along the Farrington Highway of Oahu. This cave was formed over 150,000 years ago. According to Hawaiian legend, Koniana Cave is home to the underground shark Nanaue, the son of Komahoali, or the king of sharks, the most sacred brother of the fire goddess Pele. Nanaue was born with a mouth on his back and his mother never fed him meat. But when he was 7, he accidentally ate one and slowly would become a shark-like humanoid with razor-sharp teeth and gills. He had an appetite for human flesh and would use the cave as his lair until one day a group of villagers came together and hunted him down for good. Now it's said if you see an elderly Hawaiian man cooking meat near a cave, it's actually said to be the spirit of Nanaue. Coming in at our number 3 spot, we have Gomantong Cave. This cave is basically nature's real-life haunted house. Despite the fact that this cave is a geographical wonder with limestone walls reaching 300 feet and with light that filters through the holes of the top, in reality this cave is said to be one of the most disgusting sightings of wildlife. First things first, this cave is a home to 2 million bats. Yes, millions. So many of you would think that Batman is down there too, but he's not. So due to the overload of bats, there are actually thick layers of guano, otherwise known as bat poop, fill in the cave, which gives it this disgusting smell even before entering the cave. If bats aren't enough to stray you away from this cave, then maybe the millions of Malaysian cockroaches will. These cockroaches are everywhere. It's said that you can't even walk one step without hitting one. And if that wasn't enough, you might even stumble upon snakes, scorpions, and even crabs. I'm getting goosebumps just describing this cave alone. At our number 2 spot, we have Moville Cave. This cave in Romania is said to be the king of the toxic underground or the most toxic cave on earth. It is not a very pleasant cave to go into, but after being cut off from the world for over 5 million years, it was accidentally discovered back in 1986. The air in the cave is warm and moist, but very low in oxygen and high in toxic gases. The air is high in hydrogen sulfide, methane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide. So really nothing you should be inhaling in. If the poisonous air wasn't enough, in this dark, isolated, and poisonous kingdom live 51 species of invertebrates, 34 of which are found only in this cave. At our number 1 spot, we have Chislehurst Cave. This large cave in England spans 22 miles of passageways split into 3 distinct sections known as Saxon, Druid, and Roman. They all branch out and then linking one another soon after. In World War II, many British civilians would use this cave to hide from the bombings, but this cave's use came all the way back in 1250, where there were written reports of mining in these caves. Throughout history, the cave was also used as a cemetery to keep the dead, which is why many believed it to be haunted. People report hearing screams, murmurs, children giggling, and footsteps echoing from deep within the cave. Locals even claim that reports are from the spirits who passed away in that cave, trying to let the living know of their eternal suffering.
Starting at number 10, mad cow disease. Now despite the funny name, this one's actually kind of freaky. Scientists found out that many people may be silent carriers for mad cow disease and won't know for another decade or so. Mad cow disease from the 1980s to 1990s was due to cows being fed the remains of other animals. People then ate their beef and consumed prions, a protein that can destroy the human brain. It's thought that many people still might carry prions, but won't know until they start experiencing the symptoms of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, sorry if I mispronounced that, which might be 10 to 50 years after consuming the contaminated meat. You can also contract the prions from blood transfusions, which is why so many UK citizens from that time period still aren't allowed to donate blood. Once the symptoms begin, cognitive impairment, memory loss, hallucinations, etc., you usually pass within months and there is no cure or treatment.
Definitively determined. A widely accepted theory is that BSE is caused by changes in the prion protein, PRP, found in highest concentrations in the plasma membrane of neurons.
Now at number 9, nuclear waste. Back in 1946 to 58, the US tested 60 nuclear weapons on the Marshall Islands and buried the nuclear leftover waste and soil in a 30-foot deep cavern, sealing it with a concrete dome. Scientists discovered the dome is cracking and now it's leaking into the ocean and it's not fixing itself. And the people responsible are essentially ignoring it or saying it's not their problem. This is just making our planet worse for people. And people that swim in the ocean, it's very dangerous and life-threatening. Here at number 8, artificial general intelligence. In other words, a digital computer that is superhuman in all cognitive tasks. Humans are imbued by evolution with a sort of general learning algorithm, but it's running on a very slow biological computer with low input or output speed. talking, tapping thumbs, reading, etc. Once we can implant that algorithm in silicone, a computer chip, there's a good chance it'll be superhuman in a matter of days or less. Sort of on the level of intelligence gap you might feel between you and a mosquito. Coming in at number 7, mass extinction. Paleontologists have identified 5 points in Earth's history when, for whatever reason, asteroid impact, volcanic eruptions, and atmospheric changes are the main suspects. Mass extinctions eliminated many or most species. The concept of extinction took a while to sink in. Thomas Jefferson saw mastodon bones from Kentucky, for example, and concluded that the giant animals must still be living somewhere in the interior of the continent. Today, according to many biologists, we are in the midst of a 6th great extinction. Mastodons may have been some of the earliest victims. As humans moved from continent to continent, large animals that have thrived for millions of years began to disappear. Mastodons in North America, giant kangaroos in Australia, and dwarf elephants in Europe. Whatever the cause of this early wave of extinctions, humans are driving modern extinctions by hunting, destroying habitat, introducing invasive species, and inadvertently spreading diseases. Now at number 6, blood falls. Discovered over a century ago, it took 100 years before British scientists knew this was a living organism, which went from green to red as sunlight hit it, which darkened the snow and ice, bringing on an unnatural melt. The discovery came at the hands of a team of scientists, including National Geographic emerging explorer Aaron C. Petit, located in Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys. The falls pour from Taylor Glacier, and the liquid bubbles up from the fissures in the glacier's surface. The flow was previously a mystery, as the mean temperatures is 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit, or 17 degrees Celsius. The organisms now cover about half of the Antarctic, accelerating climate change and seemingly immune to interference. Halfway at number 5, bees disappearing. So most people already know that our honeybees are in danger, and we need honeybees to survive. But what some people don't know is that in a study published in the journal Cell Press, it reported more than 25% of known bee species have disappeared from the public record over the last 30 years. The researchers characterized the change in the total number of species collected worldwide as a sharp decline. Loss of habitat, agriculture practices, biodiversity loss, and parasites are all possible culprits driving bee decline. The study notes that these roughly 20,000 bee species are most of the important group of insect pollinators on Earth, pollinating 85% of all cultivated crops. Now at number 4, skull. So this one is pretty short, but I thought I'd include it anyway because it's terrifying. 7 large skeletons were found in the 1880s, all with the same skull as this. Like what? It looks like a human skull, but what are those horn-looking things? It is theorized that the skull came from a living thing resembling a human, but was more animal-like, kinda how apes developed into people. Others think it's from some beast-like demon who hunted and ate people. Here at number 3, real-life Thanos snap. The Higgs boson, which was hypothesized decades ago, was discovered through the Large Hadron Collider. It's a real-life discovery that proved that it's what gives mass to everything. But there is a non-zero chance that a Higgs boson can drop to a lower energy state. And because of the law of entropy, it's the preferred state to decay to a lower energy state if possible. The influence of a low energy state boson would kick off a chain reaction, causing other Higgs bosons to drop to a lower energy state. The problem with this is that if a Higgs boson drops to a lower energy state, then it can't give mass to things anymore, which has universal implications when mass doesn't have mass anymore. It's all theorized that the small probability of this occurring could lead to a circumstance where the universe as we know it disappears. Essentially, it would occur like an absolute void progressing through the universe. Low energy state Higgs boson and infecting any other Higgs bosons they come across. It causes everything to disappear in the universe, but only at the speed of light rather than instantaneously. Moving on to number 2, Mars water. A study was published earlier this year in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, reconstructing the red planet's early history, using data from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to look back onto the planet's history. Kite and his colleagues proposed clouds once warmed the planet, just enough to sustain patches of liquid water at the surface. This one is pretty interesting because this means Mars could possibly be habitable, and with our planet slowly dying, this means later generations might live on Mars.
Mars colonization is now actually conceivable, but it would take a bit more than a few drops of water.
Taking our number 1 spot, pineapple. Now I know this one sounds silly, but when I read it, my jaw literally dropped. Scientists have discovered that pineapple is the only fruit in the whole world which contains the enzyme called bromelain. Bromelain is an enzyme which breaks down protein. Considering that 16% of the human body is made up of protein, mostly in our flesh, it means that bromelain in pineapples can actually break down protein in our flesh, essentially eating us from the inside. However, most of the enzymes are thankfully destroyed by the acid in our stomach, so pineapple won't actually pose too much of a threat to your life, although this is often used as a reason to explain why pineapple farmers have no fingerprints. Constant physical interaction with pineapples has worn them off, though this is not scientifically proven yet, just a hypothesis.
Now, pineapple has citric acid along with bromelain. It's not the citric acid that causes the burning, it's the bromelain that's eating your mouth.
Starting off at number 10, World War II bomb. A random Christmas morning years ago in Germany, construction workers made a frightening discovery when a group of construction workers were digging up the ground in order to build new apartments in the future. They, however, ended up digging up an undetonated bomb from World War II that weighed 1.8 tons, which is around 4,000 pounds. It was said that it could have easily gone off with all the heavy metal construction vehicles and equipment just by making contact. After making the discovery, police immediately evacuated more than 54,000 people from the nearby area, while a bomb squad transported it far away and then detonated it. However, had it gone off, people predicted that it would have hit over a mile in every direction.
54,000 people were evacuated from the city of Augsburg in southern Germany after construction workers discovered an unexploded World War II bomb on Christmas morning. Because of the size of the 1.8-ton bomb, the evacuation zone was 1.5 kilometers. Although evacuations of this sort are common, this is the biggest single evacuation for an unexploded Allied bomb in post-war Germany.
Now at number 9, hidden city. In 1963, a Turkish man was renovating his home. After knocking down a wall in his basement, he discovered an odd-looking tunnel. He followed the tunnel and found an ancient underground city called Derinkenyu. Sorry if I mispronounced that, which is large enough to have sheltered as many as 20,000 people together.
The upper floors were used as apartments, closest to the fresh air, but Derinkuyu has a complex system of over 16,000 ventilation shafts that allow air to circulate through every room in the city.
Do you know how fast I would move out of that place if I found something even remotely similar? Now at number 8, unmarked graves. A construction crew was demolishing a parking lot in Philadelphia when they made a terrifying discovery. The crew was supposed to be building something new when it quickly turned into an excavation operation, as heavy cranes lift casket after casket out of the ground, which were over 300 years old, that contained real human remains from an old church and cemetery that once stood in that same spot in the 1700s. But the caskets were supposed to have been relocated to a different cemetery around the 1860s, but whoever was in charge of it lied and said they moved the bodies, probably to save money. This means for years people have been walking over unmarked graves without even knowing. Now coming in at number 7, shelter. This one was posted by a Redditor. I was playing in the woods and tripped over something solid, found it was a cement circle, and realized it was an underground door. The next day I come back with a crowbar to open, and like hell I'm going in unarmed. Pull it up and it was a Cold War era personal bomb shelter that failed. There was a giant crack in the roof. The floor was covered in slime. But what was worse is the walls are covered in writings. This is the end, we must die, everyone is gone, till I find the back wall. And there's a giant red scroll that says, get out of my home. I sprint at the door and close it. I don't want to know what the hell that was, but I came back the next day. It's burned out. I didn't set a fire intentionally, and I didn't smell smoke leaving. Now at number 6, metal sphere. Back in 1974, a fire destroyed a large part of a family's woodlands. As they examined the damage, they stumbled across a strange metal ball buried in the ground, completely smooth except for a single elongated triangle symbol. Thinking it was some sort of space junk or meteor, they took it home with them. After about 2 weeks, the family started noticing something strange about the metal orb. The sphere would allegedly resonate with certain sounds and frequencies, such as a played guitar, causing it to vibrate or hum. They discovered that if the orb was pushed across the floor, it would change direction of its own accord and often return to its original starting position. To this day, it's still not known for certain what the mystery sphere is, and we might never know because its current whereabouts are allegedly unknown.
How it got there, I, nor anyone else I know, has any knowledge of this.
However, there are many theories attempting to explain this possible nature, from an alien artifact to a plain and simple ball valve bearing. Now at number 5, Vikings. When another construction crew was busy at work building a new road, they came across a patch of unordinary land. This area was the final resting spot of 51 unidentified skeleton bodies. One pile was nothing but bodies and another was nothing but heads that were neatly arranged in rows. Scientists were eventually able to identify through testing that they were the remains of Scandinavian Vikings who presumably were captured during a battle and had their heads removed. Scientists also identified their country of origin by examining microscopic food particles in their teeth.
They uncovered a secret that was 1,000 years old. Archaeologists painstakingly uncovered a mass burial with at least 50 bodies.
I personally would never want to be a construction worker because the amount of discoveries on this list that were construction workers is very unsettling. Now at number 4, giant knife. Back in 2014, a team of professional scuba divers discovered the biggest knife ever underwater. 3 divers had taken a photo of them all holding it together. Once the image was released on the internet, people went crazy with speculating where it came from and how it got there. The people in the photo also didn't say anything about their discovery, and usually with a discovery so big you want to take credit, but it's almost like they just took the photo and disappeared. The most common theory is that it was from a giant millions of years ago, thinking that the knife was proof of bigger human life forms than us. But I guess it could be a movie prop, or maybe it was something that was never supposed to be found, so that's why the people in the photo were never heard from again. And how did it have gotten that deep in the water? Now at number 3, car graveyard. A group of friends were exploring an abandoned mine when they came across a pool of water down one of the tunnels. Just past the pool of water, they then found a car graveyard.
We have finally made it to the car cave graveyard.
With many cars of different ages, most of which were over 100 years old.
I don't know any other explorers or people who have actually came to here, like actually to the other side. I don't think anyone's crazy enough to even do it. Jeez.
The group had to, however, quickly leave because shrapnel was falling on their heads. It was very unstable and not sanitary, so I highly recommend not going even if it looks interesting. Coming in at number 2, we have Tsul Princess. On September 5th, 1969, miners were working in a coal mine when at 70 meters saw a 2-meter marble sarcophagus. The artifact was then taken to the surface, and as the miners were curious, they decided to open it, only to discover a mummified body of a young girl in a pinkish-like liquid. She has been described to have had white skin and thick dark brown hair. They then named the discovery Tsul Princess. Once they took her body out of the pink liquid to run tests, her body started to brown very quickly. Once they put her back, she returned to her original color without any sign of decay. They found out it was impossible to find the contents of it or how the liquid was produced. They said it was reasonable to assume the girl was from a civilization much more highly developed than ours. Now coming in at number 1, wishing well. A YouTuber named Craig Wilson was doing some home repairs by himself when he noticed a small hole in the tiles in his backyard. He opened it up a bit more and was absolutely stunned. He revealed a huge cavern which went 16 feet straight down.
This hole goes down, down, down to a giant cavern.
It's unknown what this hole was used for, but some think it was a wishing well many years ago.
Starting our list right, we have a time vortex. In 1970, Floridan pilot Bruce Jernon Jr., his father and friend were flying towards Bahimi Island in the Bahamas. They noticed a rather unusual crowd, to which he referred to as an electronic fog. This is where it gets weirder. When they entered the fog, it became dark very quickly, resulting in little visibility. They would notice these bright white flashes getting progressively worse as they went further in the tunnel of smoke. Navigational tools such as their compasses would begin to malfunction by spinning around rapidly, similar to that of Christopher Columbus when he was around the same area. They would come to the quick conclusion that they needed to escape this fog, but once they did, air traffic control towers detected them over the Miami beach, which would be physically impossible, as his last possible known location was in the Gulf Stream, which is over 100 miles away, which would mean he would have had to travel at nearly 2,000 miles per hour, which is not possible. In our number 9 spot, we have the Ellen Austin. The Ellen Austin was a 210-foot American multi-masted ship. In 1880, the ship was set for New York. However, weeks into its travel, it came across an unidentified ship drifting just north of the Bermuda Triangle. Since the unknown ship wasn't sailing, the captain of the ship ordered a crew to check out the mysterious vessel. When they had boarded, no one was to be found. No signs of violence, nor any signs of the ship's logs. They would attempt to bring the unknown ship back to New York, but would be interrupted by a fierce storm which separated the two ships. After a few days, the captain of the Ellen Austin would spot the ship drifting aimlessly again. They sailed towards the ship once again to find out the ship was empty, with no sign of the crew he had sent, no sign of struggle or distress. This ship was then marked as cursed to the crewmates, but the captain, being oblivious, would still want to seize the opportunity and order another group to sail it. As they set sail with both ships once again, the weather turned poor and separated the ships again, with the ghostly ship disappearing for good. Imagine sending out another group of men to sail this boat after the first group of men perished out of existence. Taking our number 8 spot, we have the Flight 19 mystery. In 1945, the United States sent a group of 5 torpedo bombers known as Flight 19 over the Bermuda Triangle for navigation training. As the bombers flew out over water, all 5 bomber planes would disappear, along with all 14 airmen. In one of the last radio messages received, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, the flight commander, reported, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are. The water is green, no, white." Some have speculated that aliens use the Bermuda Triangle as a portal to our planet, where they would capture humans along with our technology to conduct further research on our species. This could be one of the reasons for the disappearance of Flight 19, but we will never know if there's an interdimensional portal without going in it first. At number 7, we have the USS Cyclops ghost ship. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops, one of the Navy's biggest fuel ships, marks the largest loss of life in the history of the US Navy in a single incident. In March 1918, this massive ship set out to sail from Brazil to Baltimore through the Bermuda Triangle with about 309 crew members on board. Once they set off, no signs of issues were reported by the ship. However, the ship was never heard from again. An entire search of the area was put into action, but nothing was ever found. What was odd was that the captain of the USS Cyclops never sent out a distress signal. Ships and planes that traveled through the Bermuda Triangle have said they have spotted this large naval ship still sailing within. But every time they attempt to get closer or contact the ship, it would begin to vanish out of thin air. The USS Cyclops was a rather large ship, which makes this ghostly sighting eerie. At number 6, we have a government testing ground. It is believed by a few that the Bermuda Triangle is actually a testing ground for some governments that border the Atlantic Ocean. It's said to test their advanced technology ranging from underground nuclear bombs to specialized vehicle and weapons. It is said that the governments attempt to add this negative stigma towards the Bermuda Triangle for the sole purpose of keeping people away from their testing grounds. Secret government involvement could explain the disappearance and fairly odd phenomena that occur within the triangle. Right in the hump of our list, we have sea monsters. Could something be lurking in the depths of the triangle that could explain the disappearances? Well, there is a massive sea serpent said to roam in the Bermuda Triangle called the Bermuda Beast. The Bermuda Beast is described as a massive sea creature that is 4 times larger than the Eiffel Tower, making this the largest creature to ever exist if it was truly found. The Bermuda Beast could be the explanation for the missing ships and planes, since it is said to leap out of the water and snatch ship and planes. If that doesn't sound convincing, remember that only 5% of the oceans are discovered, which makes the ocean just as mysterious as the Bermuda Triangle. Who really knows what lies under? Enchanting our number 4 spot, we have the witchcraft. No, there are no witches on their little witch boats in the Bermuda Triangle. However, this story is just as odd. On December 22nd, 1967, a 23-foot luxury yacht named the Witchcraft left Miami with her captain Dan Burrock and his friend Father Patrick Horgan. The plan was to view the Christmas lights from the water, but after reaching a distance of only 1 mile off the coast, the Coast Guards would be notified that the ship had hit something. After reaching the yacht's last known location, it was nowhere to be found. The weird part was that the ship was theoretically unsinkable with an arsenal of life-saving devices ranging from lifeboats to flares. As well, Captain Dan Burrock was a cautious yachtsman, making the disappearance surprising to those who knew him. The yacht is reported by some ships to be drifting through the Devil's Triangle, but no one has wanted to sail close enough to figure out the true mystery of the Witchcraft. At number 3 of our list, Atlantis, we have Mary Celeste. On the fateful day of December 5, 1872, Mary Celeste set sail from New York Harbor to carry cargo to Italy, but unfortunately, the ship never made it to the destination. After several search and rescue efforts, the ship was found adrift in Bermuda Triangle, but none of its crew of 11 people were found. Personal belongings, food containers, precious cargo, and lifeboats were still on the ship. As well, rotten food was found on board, and foul play was not detected throughout the whole ship. The boat was basically still seaworthy, for it had seemed that everyone just disappeared without a single piece of evidence, almost as if they all jumped off on the ship and just abandoned it. Since it had ended up in the Bermuda Triangle, it can be said that it has become a product of its curse. The famous Atlantis takes our number 2 spot. The infamous sunken city is believed to be situated within the Bermuda Triangle. Atlantis was said to be surrounded by hundreds of thousands of crystals that radiated large amounts of energy. Their energy radiating from the crystals could explain the area's tendencies to disrupt communication systems, compasses, and even completely immobilize ships and planes. Then in 1968, scuba diver J. Manson Valentine discovered a series of laid stones at the bottom of the ocean that appeared as though they formed a road, also known as Bimini Road. Doing further investigations, sci-fi show Quest for Atlantis discovered a second layer beneath that road, which could be more promising evidence of a sunken city. Coming in at our number 1 spot, and don't be disappointed, but it all may just be in our head, with no mystery at all. The theory of the Bermuda Triangle having no mystery is definitely something more believable. Scientist Carl Kruszelnicki said that everything could be explained by human error, bad weather, and heavy air and sea traffic. As well, the Bermuda Triangle is known as a high traffic area. Ships and planes go through this body of water every day at all times. And where there are people, there will be incidents. The area is known to be an active hurricane zone with a Gulf Stream running directly through it, making it a place of unpredictable weather. Or better yet, what if the cause for the disappearances was related to the negative stigma attached to the triangle? Basically, what if people went into the area with the preconceived thought that it was dangerous, which would then psych themselves out, causing them to do human error? Starting it right at number 10, we have Franz Reichelt aviator suit. This French inventor crafted a parachute from 320 square feet of fabric, all of which folded into a personal wearable aviator suit. To test this invention, he had experimented with dummies, which all ended up becoming failed attempts. Instead of questioning the quality and safety of his own invention, he decided to blame the building due to their low height, claiming that his suit would only work given enough height. Trying to find a larger building to prove his claims, Reichelt would plan his next feat by jumping from the Eiffel Tower. There's video footage of this incident, however, it is not for the faint of heart. This is because the moment he jumped, he quickly noticed his suit was not opening up properly, causing him to plummet straight down. I don't know much about parachuting, but maybe, just maybe, he could have tested with a dummy first before jumping from this type of distance. At number 9, we have the sad case of the two-headed dogs. This story is not for animal lovers. Russian scientist and organ transplant pioneer Vladimir Demikhov conducted multiple surgeries which successfully transplanted vital organs between dogs. As his experiments progressed, he aimed to see if he could take things further. He wanted to graft the head of one dog onto a body of another, creating one fully intact dog. Then finally, in the 1950s, he created the first two-headed dog. But this wasn't by any means ethical. Apparently, he conducted the two-headed dog surgery 23 times with varying degrees of success. The famous one of his experiments involved one stray German Shepherd and a smaller dog. As seen in the picture, the German Shepherd looked sad and confused. Initially, the experiment was a quote-unquote success, since both heads could hear, see, smell, and swallow. However, the dog only lived 4 days, and I guess it was going through the worst types of pains imaginable. Despite the ethical nature of this experiment, calling Demikhov a mad scientist may be undercutting his contributions to the world of medicine and transplants. But in this case alone, the bad outweighs the good, and let's hope there's never an experiment like this again, at least on dogs. Coming in at number 8, we have the elephant on LSD. In 1962, researchers from the University of Oklahoma injected a 7-ton bull elephant by the name of Tusco with 297 milligrams of LSD or acid. The goal of this experiment was to try to induce musth. which is the testosterone-fueled ultra rage that elephant males go into during breeding season. To give you insight, 300 milligrams of acid is a whole lot of acid. And 5 minutes after the elephant was injected, Tusko would fall to the ground and start seizing. To make things worse, they injected Tusko with 2,800 milligrams of promazine hydrochloride, an anti-nausea and sedative drug. After an hour of different injections, Tusko would pass away. The whole idea was controversial to begin with and shouldn't have ever happened. But what makes this failed experiment interesting is that acid is not supposed to be lethal to animals that size. To prove this, in 1984, a researcher from UCLA administered large doses of acid to 2 elephants, with none dying, making others believe that the other drugs they gave Tusko led to his doom. The infamous Milgram experiment takes our number 7 spot. In 1961, Yale University psychologist Dr. Stanley Milgram wanted to see how people would obey orders given to them by authority figures even if what they were doing was morally wrong. Milgram designed an experiment consisting of 3 parts: an experimenter, a teacher, and a learner. Participants were asked to administer an electrical shock to a learner every time they got an answer wrong. Then, they had increased the voltage before asking another question. While the participants thought they were part of a study exploring learning methods, they were actually subjects of another experiment. Some participants were actors, and the shocks were not really administered. The real study explored how much someone would be willing to cause pain to another as a result of being told to by an authority figure. The study showed that the majority of participants administered the maximum level of what they believed to be 450 volts, despite the earners crying out in pain. While the actors actually didn't receive any harm, the participants who administered the electrical shocks were under severe stress during the experiment and were deeply affected long afterwards. It's crazy that people can be brought to the brink of death just because someone with a white lab coat told them to. Infecting our number 6 spot, we have the Ebola guinea pig. Do you remember the 2013 Ebola outbreak? If not, just remember that Ebola is one of the most dangerous viruses in the world. It seemed that they had ignored the warnings on the label for the virus. A Russian scientist, Antonia Presnikova, was in charge of handling the dangerous virus and accidentally injected herself with it. Apparently, her arm just slipped and she jabbed herself, causing her to pass away in less than a month. In the hump for our list, we have the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. This experiment was designed to observe the effects of syphilis when untreated. It was conducted in 1932 by the US Public Health Service, with 600 African Americans recruited from Alabama. The men consisted of 399 with latent syphilis and 201 as a control group with no syphilis. They agreed to the study because they were promised free healthcare, in which they never got, and were originally told that they were being treated for bad blood. These men were giving only placebos such as aspirin and mineral supplements, rather than being treated with penicillin, which was recommended treatment at that time. Many participants of the study died, went blind, got driven to insanity, and other severe health complications due to the untreated syphilis. The story ended up arising back in 1972, and by that time 28 more participants perished, 100 more passed away from related issues, 40 spouses were diagnosed with it, and the disease even got passed down to 19 children. Despite an apology by President Clinton in 1997, the damages have already been done. Coming in at number 4, we have the Bobo doll experiment. In the early 1960s, Stanford University psychologist Albert Bandura attempted to demonstrate that behavior, in this case violent behavior, can be learned through observation of reward and punishment. They took 3 groups of children and showed them a room filled with toys and a distinct Bobo doll. The control group enters and starts playing with the toys. The second group, when they walked by the room, watched an adult doing non-aggressive behaviors, like playing with the toys. And then the third group saw an adult violently beating and verbally abusing the toy for about 10 minutes. The kids go in the room while the experimenter slowly takes away the toys in the room, leaving the Bobo doll. Once the child was left alone, they would imitate the acts of physical and verbal violence done on the doll, demonstrating that violent behavior can be taught fairly easy, which was super unethical for these children because who knows if these had long-term effects. This experiment could have been brewing the next serial killer for all we know. Teaching kids aggression should just not be happening. At number 3, we have the human baby and ape experiment. In the 1930s, a psychologist named Winthrop Kellogg decided to adopt the baby chimp and raise it alongside his own baby boy in an experiment. To keep this experiment as legitimate as possible, the boy and the chimp were treated as similar as possible. The chimp was dressed, bathed, fed, and talked to the same as the boy. Every day, the psychologist would document their development. In the beginning of the experiment, the chimp surprisingly developed faster than the boy. But to the disappointment of the psychologist, the chimp would never develop human language. However, on the other end, the boy began to adopt some of the chimp's languages, including a food bark, indicating he was hungry. Due to these early life experiences, the boy would become more ape-like every day. And when the study finally got published, it led Donald to self-destruction, eventually to his death. All the way up at our number 2 spot, we have the Stanford Prison Experiment. This experiment could be one of the most famous and controversial psychological studies of all time. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo wanted to create an experiment to see how people would react to a simulated prison environment where they played both the role of the guard and the prisoner. They selected 24 undergraduate students for this, splitting them into 2 groups. The experiment officially started when prisoners were arrested by the Palo Alto police. Over the next 5 days, physical abuse of the prisoners would become increasingly brutal. The prisoners showed signs of extreme stress and anxiety, with others having to be released from the study early. After Christina Maslach visited to check on their conditions, she was so upset that she made them end the experiment on day 6. Just goes to show how strong power is in the wrong hands. Taking our number 1 spot, we have Sigmund Freud's diagnosis. Emma Exon was an early patient of Sigmund Freud who underwent disastrous nasal surgery, undertaken by Freud's friend and confidant, Wilhelm Fliess. They were immediate friends, perhaps because of their common belief in the importance of sex in the cause of disease. Freud believed sexual repression gave rise to mental illness, and Fliess had a similar idea about nasal pathology. Emma Eckstein originally came to Freud with nervous unhealthiness, as she described it. With this being said, Wilhelm Fliess believed that depression, hysteria, and self-pleasure could be subsided by cauterizing the nose. They eventually performed a nose surgery on Eckstein, burning her nasal passages. After the operation, she began suffering from all kinds of infections and non-stop bleeding. In fact, her nasal passages were so damaged that she was left permanently disfigured. I like some of Freud's work, but come on, what was he thinking?